boycotted by Ian Paisley's Democratic Unionist Party, played Jesus the Guantanamo years in Pakistan, and is now giving us a free preview of his latest show, Pope Benedict Bond Villain. Abie, Philbin, Bowman.
Oh, isn't this kind of fantastically wonderful, and yet I can't help look at little orange things, and it just feels slightly organised. I'm just like, any minute now we're sort of marching down the Garmahi Road or something. A bit creepy, and I don't know that I'm, but no, it's lovely to be here. I think we probably do need to organise as a group. My name is Abie. I shall warn you right now, I never wanted to be a comedian. Growing up here in Dublin, I desperately wanted to be a famous Irish novelist. And tragically, I had a happy childhood. Largely due to the absence of religion, among other things, which is quite enlightened of my parents. But no, it was weird actually growing up as an atheist, because when I was about 9, I used to sort of be the annoying kid in religion class who would sit and ask awkward questions like, why doesn't God kill people? God says don't kill. Isn't that really hypocritical? And all of the kids who've been going to religious school for years went, Abie, it's religion, it's not supposed to make sense. And I was like, no! This isn't really important. If you're going to give us a moral framework, I was that nerd. And you know, people will be like, you don't believe in nothing, you're a sinner, you don't no moral framework. I mean, at least you're not a Protestant, but still! that was kind of the attitude. And then, when I was about 11 or 12, all the scandals came out, and I went, oh, you were right, oh, fair enough. I had no idea, okay. It's a little bit like how I've experienced the recession, actually, because basically during the boom years, when everyone was like buying houses and getting jobs, I was living at home with my parents, completely refusing to take on any kind of adult responsibility. I didn't learn to drive, I didn't get a mortgage, I didn't get a job, I had this crazy dream of being a comedian, I didn't even drink tea. I actually refuse to drink alcohol on the grounds I'm already horny and overconfident. Which, for the record, would make me a totally shit Catholic. I'm also gluten intolerant. So I can't have... Thank you. You see, an atheist audience, you guys get this already. I can't have the body or the blood of Jesus, which is kind of awkward at communion. And I've looked into whether or not you can get a gluten-free wafer. And interestingly, you can't, right? Because apparently, if it doesn't contain gluten, in the Protestant tradition, it's fine, it's just representative, that's grand. But under the Catholic teaching, if it doesn't contain wheat and gluten, it doesn't represent the bread that Jesus ate at the Last Supper. To which I replied, but hang on, didn't you say it transforms into the body of Jesus? Doesn't that mean that logically, if it's transformed, it wouldn't contain wheat anyway, so celiac should be able to have a normal wafer? And they went, no, we thought about this, it won't transform properly, it'll mess it. So say what you like about I mean, they may have covered up the abuse of millions of children worldwide, but at least they're theologically consistent about gluten. I grew up during the recession. As I said, I had no adult responsibility, lived at home, didn't have a job, didn't have a car, etc., etc. And I was a textbook loser. And then the financial crisis happened, and through no fault of my own, I became an economic genius. I haven't got a mortgage, I can't be fired, and I have the most stable career. Try outsourcing this bullshit to China. Yeah. Quite a strange journey, but it's odd. Michael alluded to some of the things that I have gotten up to. And when I wrote the Jesus show, the Jesus the Guantanamo years that you heard a bit about, I actually wasn't trying to annoy every Christian I could. That wasn't actually the aim. But there's a particular brand of Christians who annoy the hell out of me. And to be fair, who annoy the hell out of most nice Christians that I know. And this is the brand of very right-wing, evangelical, American Christian fundamentalists. The Sarah Palins and the George Bushes. People who say, you can't spell Jesus without U-S. You know that brand of really judgmental, vindictive, it's all gonna end and you're all gonna die, ha ha ha. And I don't mind them being American, that's fine. I don't mind them being Christian. That's okay with me. What annoys me is that they are total hypocrites. Because we all know that if Jesus came back now, there's no way he would get through US immigration. He is a bearded Middle Eastern man who wishes to die as a martyr. And he's just walked out of a cave. I mean, come on. Seriously. He's going to end up, and all I was really trying to say is Guantanamo Bay is kind of un-Christian. And if you actually believe in the values of love and tolerance and forgiveness, which I think are, perfectly okay values in and of themselves, then you can't really go around torturing people. And actually, if you read the Bible, I think Jesus says somewhere, what you do to the least of these, you do also to me. But of course, people didn't understand this, or some people didn't understand this, and specifically the DUP didn't understand this. Not terribly surprising in the grand scheme of things. And obviously I was there, I had my jumpsuit and my long hair and the crown of thorns, and with the whole, Jesus, they wanted, in Guantanamo, that's how it would look, to try and make the point. And to be honest, the weird thing is, right, I travelled to America with this, and they go, fine, no problem. Pakistan, I am the only Western comedian stupid enough to do religious, political comedy in a Muslim country during a state of emergency. And it was great, it was lovely, they came along and they were like, yes, clearly the fundamentalists have got this wrong, and thank you for pointing out that Guantanamo is really stupid. And it is, Guantanamo is, if I was to explain it, it's kind of like a maximum security prison, but designed and run by Kentucky Fried Chicken. Because you've got the battery-sized wire mesh cages, and the horrible uniforms. And, the people in charge are like evil men in suits, sitting in offices trying to take over the world. But all you meet face to face are ignorant teenagers with no other career choices. And the food is awful. So it really is, the closest thing to KFC. And imagine being trapped in your local KFC for a month. Imagine what that would do to your soul. I know we don't have soul, but you know what I mean. Speaking allegorically, you know what that would do to your soul. I'm tying myself in knots here, and I think I've lost you now, shit. That was going so well, then you meant, atheistic mysticism, scary. I'll get a schism going, I'm like, splitters! So I had a great time in Pakistan and America and all sorts of places. And then, bizarrely, the one place I got picketed was in Dunleary. Supposedly the most liberal constituency in the country. I had people outside going, this is blasphemous and that's terrible. And I had the classic, we all had the art of blasphemy. So you're telling me you believe in a God who created everything and is the creator of the universe, but who is more offended by me telling jokes than by, for instance, the American army torturing his children. Really, that's the guy okay, fine. And I had this row with the DUP, as you do, and in the middle of the thing with the DUP, I had this moment of going, oh my God, I am being attacked by an Ulster Protestant for dressing in orange and talking about Jesus. That is my favourite thing that's happened to me ever. And it proves that you can spell stand-up comedy without DUP. Oh, dear. I was up in Belfast recently. Was anyone remotely interested in? I imagine being atheist were probably mostly Republican in the sense of actually knowing what that word means and respecting the democratic will of the people, kind of a way. But rather than the yes, I respect the will of the I'm going to blow people up. What? No, that doesn't make sense. That thing, the kind of this Al Qaeda-ish mentality of yes, we will help the children of Palestine by blowing up a commuter train in London, which is like me saying, well, I've got mice in my kitchen, I will fly to Botswana and shoot a giraffe. No, it doesn't make any sense. Still not making sense. If you don't believe me that those guys are complete morons, watch the videos that they make. They're hilarious. They say things like, we've told you so many times to get out of Muslim lands. And you're thinking, all right, dude, but you're a Pakistani bloke living in Walthamstow. You're welcome, but don't get all BNP on our asses. And they always end the videos, always, with the phrase, death to the West. Yet they're clearly using Windows Movie Maker. Now, I went up north for a gig, a lovely, lovely gig. I do actually love playing in Northern Ireland because they have such a wonderful attitude to the whole, everyone else is so freaked out by the war on terror. And in Belfast, they're just much more chill about the whole thing, for fairly obvious reasons. There was a case a few years back of a crazy Islamist who set his car on fire and drove it into Glasgow Airport. And people around the world, this is shocking, this is terrible. I mean, he was beaten up by a baggage handler, which is hilarious. But, I mean, the first bit, they're driving, this is awful. And people in Northern Ireland were like, that's just fucking incompetent. That's no way to bomb an airport. What was they thinking? So I was in a gig for the Cathedral Quarter Arts Festival on the 27th of last month, which was the day before the royal wedding. And normally I would not give a crap about the royal wedding, but I was in Belfast. And I thought, I've read this Darragh O'Brien thing, maybe some of you guys read it, about Andrew Maxwell spent the entire last summer World Cup going to various different boroughs in London to watch every game with the fans from that part of the world, like so Ghana was playing, somewhere he'd go to a Ghanaian pub and whatever. And I thought, right, I'm in Belfast for the royal wedding, I'm going to a bar on the Shankill Road. And I went, it was great, I got a taxi up there, and I tell you, it's the one time in my life that having quite a posh D4 accent has actually lowered my chances of getting the shit kicked out of me. Because they couldn't quite play, they were like, is he English? We're not quite, it's very hard to judge. Yes, Tónmina Honeen, or I'm a West Brit, for those of you who don't speak Gaelic. But no, it was great, because I wanted to blend in, I didn't say very much, I was quite out of character. And I just said, look, can I have, I don't drink, so I have an orange juice. And they went, oh, actually, we're out of orange. I thought, oh, the irony! The irony! A UDA bar out of orange on the day of the royal wedding. And it was quite a sweet story, the whole royal wedding. It was, Prince William and Kate Middleclass. They seemed to like each other. They just, it was kind of sweet. That lovely moment when Prince William gave Kate Middlebrow the ring. His mother's ring, and it was kind of sweet because you could see that clearly the ring mattered very much to him and also to her. And it was like that moment in Lord of the Rings when Frodo gives the ring to Bilbo. Or sorry, Bilbo gives the ring to Frodo. So, you can get your Bible wrong, mate, but don't mess up Lord of the Rings. We have our creation bits as well, you bastards. Okay, sorry about that. Whoa. Yeah. So anyway, that moment in that, because it's a lovely scene when Bilbo hands up, and you can see the ring really matters to Bilbo, and it's a really emotional moment, but everybody else watching is thinking, you have no idea how much shit this is going to cause. You just wait till the end of the movie. But it was quite nice to have. I was quite impressed when the Queen actually turned up here. She was quite nice. I mean, okay, I'm not a monarchist at all, but I kind of, at some level, I kind of respect the Queen for being, a diplomat for as long as she has been, and I think she's quite a politically astute woman. I think she's realised the only way she can save the British monarchy is by never dying. I mean, people quite like the Queen, but 20 minutes into the reign of King Charles and Duchess Camilla, the entire British population would be on eBay going, how do you spell guillotine? It's a weird sort of irony that I think Princess Diana is actually going to end up saving the British monarchy because her kids are now the ones who will inherit the throne. And, people really respect Princess Diana. She does all that great work for landmines and human rights and seatbelts. The audience is silent. We didn't like that. Oh dear, when atheist schism, that's not a good sign. Slurs! Yes, okay. So I wasn't palace, but I genuinely, she's quite interesting. Whereas Prince Charles, I don't like. I did a gig once for the Prince of Wales Trust, a weird collection of overweight businessmen, essentially getting together to discuss ethically grown organic knighthoods. Weird fucking gig. But I made the mistake of opening with a Prince Charles joke, which as an Irish person I felt I should do. I said, look, I just wanted you to know I quite like Prince Charles. I actually have a Prince Charles commemorative teapot. it never rains, but it pours. Yeah. Oh, that's more divisive than the Diana. Okay, wow. So bad puns, dead princesses are also okay. Fine. We have a clear moral framework. That's important. You know? Surely that's the point of this weekend, is to establish some kind of moral boundaries of this is acceptable, this is not. We can still live together like fairy tales. Lovely. We're making progress, people. This is good. But yes, so no, I was up in the north, and I should sort of balance out the comments about, because the lawyers' pub was actually quite welcoming, and I ended up wearing a little bowler hat with a Union Jack design. It was made in China, so I didn't feel like too much of a trade. And they're very welcoming. They're generally very nice people. I've met one or two people from the north who referred to me as Mexican. And this is a thing, you've heard this probably, some of you from down south are Mexicans. And you know, what's that about? Well, you're from south of the border. And I'm like, okay, I see where you're going here, but I think there is also a sort of a prejudice kind of stereotype wrapped up in that, which is the idea that we're basically, you know, poor, filthy, and overwhelmingly Catholic, right? That's kind of the stereotype we're trying to play on. And I can't help point out to these people that, geographically, if the Republic of Ireland is Mexico, well then logically Northern Ireland is Texas. And Texans, stereotypically speaking, would be overweight bigots who are overly fond of guns. If the cat fits, you know. It's great, I mean, it's lovely to be in the North End, because obviously we've got peace, which is wonderful. I think it's brilliant that a community of white, English-speaking, Western European Christians who are predominantly heterosexual can finally put aside their differences. And a community of white, English-speaking, Western European Christians who are predominantly heterosexual after a mere 35 years of senseless sectarian bloodshed. I think that's, you know, a real model for the Middle East and the South. Oh look, you get on because you have everything in common. In the interest of balance, I should probably point out that I had the opportunity to have a go at Jerry Adams as well recently. We had an election on, and he was running in loud, and he came into the studio. I was doing a bit of radio stuff, and I couldn't resist saying to him, because we had this huge financial debate about, you know, what should we do, and I said, Jerry, did you ever consider the slogan, vote Sinn Féin, we'll burn the bondholders. We know where they live. Canary Wharf. We're not sure about. Okay, so anyway, I felt I had to you know, balance that out, and I did. We had a bit of a chat. He didn't like that particular question. Curiously enough, I said, look, I'm not going to be offensive. I mean, really, Jerry, to be fair, if any party in our recent election, if any party are experienced at renegotiating with bankers in high-pressure situations. I mean, you guys really are good at that, you know. You have an established track record, so, you know, don't let me hold that against you at all. You know, there are still, of course, questions that Jeremy's past, and, you know, they haven't gone away, you know. There you are. So anyway, I should probably start to tell you the story that I was going to try and tell you today, which is basically a show I'm working on called Pope Benedict, Bond Villain. And the basic idea is, I mean, as I said earlier, I'm not really a Catholic for many reasons. One of them, I don't believe in God. But, and I can't have communion and all that stuff. But really, a big part of it, I look at the Pope, I do not see an infallible man. I see the closest thing we have ever seen or will ever see to the world's greatest and most diabolical Bond villain. I mean, he's got everything. Dodgy German accent. Shadowy Nazi past. Lives in a huge mansion full of priceless artworks. His own specially trained staff and security guards in their own uniforms. And he heads a sinister organisation which is trying to take over the world. I mean, what more do you want, really? I ask. He is. And also, I think, I mean, you've got the Pope Mobile, which is just beyond parody, but... Have you ever noticed that every really sinister Bond villain has a public name that sounds totally innocent, like, you know, Pope Benedict? And then a real name, which is really sinister and scary, like Joseph Ratzinger. I mean, you can practically hear Sean Connery going, "You'll never get away with this, Ratzinger." Oh, but I will, Mr. Bond. Say your prayers. Cardinal, take Mr. Bond away. Read him his last rites. I suppose you expect me to talk. No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die and ascend to heaven, where you will be judged by our Lord and Saviour, Jesus Christ. Unless, of course, you're a Protestant. Yeah, in my head, the film is called Octopopy. Or perhaps Popey Galore, I'm not sure. Oh, again, that's a bit... Interesting stuff you don't like. I feel kind of bad, though, because I absolutely refused to have James Bond in the show in any shape or form. I can't stand James Bond for many, many reasons. One of which is the fact that he almost definitely went to school with David Cameron. And in fact, I'm convinced, because if you ever watch Bond, he's always going to these really fancy cocktail parties and hobnobbing with international, evil people, but also, diplomats, etc. And I'm convinced his permanent fear is that he's at this, thing, eyeing up all the different spies and people he has to keep an eye on. And beautiful women, of course. And he's rugby tackled from behind by Boris Johnson, going, Bond! Hello, how are you? I'm Baron Evil Bugger. Meet Bond, you are undercover at MI6. Bond! And I just think that would be quite funny. But perhaps not so much for an Irish audience who were vaguely aware that Boris Johnson, isn't he that guy who used to have got news for you? Sorry. Yeah, he annoys me. And one of the things I'm really trying to get to the core of in the show is why is it, right, and this affects us all, I think, why is it that we're in the middle of this financial crisis, where essentially Protestant Europe is bailing out Catholic Europe, right? All the countries being bailed out, Ireland, Portugal, Spain, Italy. No, I mean, I know the Greeks are Orthodox, they're not really Orthodox, really, they're not really Catholic or Protestant. And their accounting certainly isn't Orthodox, if we can believe what we read, which I don't know that we can. But it's weird that it's all the Catholic countries, the ones, and all the Protestant countries are the ones doing the bailing out. The UK, Germany, Scandinavia, Holland, etc. And I'm trying to think, what is it about the Catholic mindset that does that, And I suppose what got me thinking was that like 1,000 years ago, right, kings and rulers would say, well, we're going to do this in the name of God. God has appointed me, and I want you to do a shitty job, and we're all going to go and invade the Middle East because we're going to reclaim God's land from God, even though he's given the land to us and also to the ones people who live there, which makes God somewhat a dodgy real estate salesman and a really needy girl going, fight over me! Which is weird, right? So that was like 1,000 years ago, and fast forward 1,000 years, and today we get some guy going, vote for me, I'm going to save the country and do a shitty job, we're going to invade the Middle East for the oil, and it's all for the sake of the economy. And it's like God's been replaced by the economy, this big nebulous thing that nobody really understands, but we really have to do stuff where it's going to go really pear-shaped. Right? And it was like, oh, we want to go to heaven, heaven's good, hell is bad, heaven good, hell bad. Now it's like, rich good, poor bad. Doing good things, you get rich, hey, hooray. And it's like, it's just the same fucking bullshit we're being asked to do. And I think there's something in the sort of the Catholic sort of psychology, which essentially is, look, if you want to get to heaven, sit there, don't ask any questions, real say the magic words, and pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Right? That would be funnier if I hadn't fucked up the line. Whereas the Protestant thing is a bit more like, well, here's the book, read it for yourself, see what you think, get back to us with any questions. Which I have to say I'm slightly more drawn to, even though that makes me a traitor to my culture. And it's weird because we now live in a country which I think Irish people are starting to wake up a bit. I do think that's good. I think, a lot of Irish people, most of them would still say they believe in God. Fair enough, that's their prerogative. But most of them would still identify as Catholic. Again, that's their prerogative. But they're asking questions. They're saying things like, well, maybe contraception isn't such a bad idea, And maybe if priests should be allowed to marry, maybe that's a lesser of two evils, if nothing else. And maybe divorce isn't the worst thing in the world. So I think we now live in the only country in the world where the vast majority of people are Catholics, and the vast majority of Catholics are Protestants. And it's really confusing, and I don't quite know why that is or how that works, but it seems to me the lesson of places like Egypt is that power is consensual, right? And we all, choose and decide whether or not we want to consent. And God used to be the way we could force people to consent, and now it's money. And I feel like an act of resistance might be to say, well, I'm not going to earn very much money, and if the IMF wants to repossess 90% of my jokes, they are fucking welcome. They can have 85% of my punchlines, they might even boost the German economy, maybe the Germans need that. I mean, the IMF has just turned into its own wonderfully surreal joke with the whole Dominique Strauss-Kahn situation. I mean, this is the guy who's supposedly head of the IMF, in charge of all this money, staying in a $1,850 hotel suite a night, and then tries to rape a chambermaid. And as awful and terrible and long as that is, a part of my brain went, Jesus man, you could have stayed in a Holiday Inn, got a really good call girl, and still saved money. I'm not saying that's a moral thing I endorse, I'm just saying, if you're meant to be this financial fucking whiz kid, prioritise your resources accordingly. Mr. fucking cutbacks and harsh pay and difficult decisions and compromises. Bastard. And is there anything else I desperately need to talk about? I feel one of the weird things that happens a bit, and this is something I've noticed here in Ireland and also in the UK a bit, and even in America with Obama, who I have some sympathy for. I mean, he didn't close Guantanamo, I'm a bit annoyed about that. But at the same time, I kind of feel like electing Barack Obama in the current climate is a bit like getting a really thoughtful liberal college professor and asking him to look after a class of dyslexic 5-year-olds with ADHD. You can't expect all his liberal ideals to remain intact, And especially because he has such a strange name, people think, Barack Obama, how exotic, how strange. And I think his parents could have made that a hell of a lot easier if they'd just given him a more American-sounding first name. If they just called him Al. I mean, who could claim that Alabama doesn't sound American? Really? It doesn't make sense. I mean, to be fair, being his parent, they would have messed the whole thing up by giving the middle name Jazeera. Screwed everything up. But no, what annoys me is this thing that happened with Obama, it's happened with Nick Clegg recently in the UK, it happened a bit with Brian Cowen and Bertie Ahern before, and with Tony Blair before that. It's this thing where we sort of all fall madly collectively in love with a politician and go, oh my god, he's the new guy, he's going to change everything and sort us all out. And then inevitably, oh my god, he's a lying-cheating bastard who we hate, right? That journey that we've all been going on with, a bunch of different politicians. And at some point I'm starting to think, maybe it's not them. Maybe it's us, right? And what I mean by that is we all have a female friend who every kind of year or two is like, oh my god, that's this amazing guy, he's really good at debating, he's kind of geeky, he's cute but only I can see it. And he's like the most amazing guy ever. And then a year later, oh my god, this lying bastard, he's a bastard, he dumped me, etc., etc. And that can happen to anybody once or twice. But if it keeps happening, at some point you have to say, listen girl, you really need to get more control of your life and really respect yourself a bit more. And not believe in this wonderful guy who's going to ride on a white charger and save the day, And maybe politically we need to do something along those lines. Although, given the options we have in this country, I don't know. I mean, it's good. I suppose it's good that the leader of the Irish Labour Party, Eamon Gilmore, for once, we have a leader of the Labour Party whose name does not sound like an Australian sex toy. All right, Shield, like Dick Spring and Pat Rabbit and Playoff Dog. Lovely. Seriously, Those just sound like weird sex toys. Very odd. And we have Enda Kenny, who is, let's be honest, not the most inspiring of leaders. To me, the only way I'm trying to explain Enda Kenny to my friends internationally, and I mean, initially I was like, how do I do this? It's quite tricky. I mean, to be fair, to put it in some kind of perspective, I mean, obviously Americans had to explain George W. Bush for 8 years. Russian people have to explain Vladimir Putin's ongoing midlife crisis. The Italians have to explain Silvio Berlusconi. I mean, whatever Enda Kenny's failings, I'm pretty sure he'll never be accused of having bunga bunga parties with underage Algerian rap dancers. Just a hunch I have. But no, how do you explain Enda Kenny? I don't know. The only term I can really, the only analogy I can draw is he's kind of like one of our other quite successful exports. He's kind of the political equivalent of Enya. He's middle of the road, he drones on, and everyone I know is way too embarrassed to admit they like him. I think we collectively start referring to him as Enya Kenny. And whenever he starts talking, just in your head, just saying, sail away, sail away, sail away. Which seems to be what everyone is basically doing. I have been trying to think of schemes to rescue the Irish economy. I thought we could put Jedward on eBay, that would be good. I actually think we missed a trick. I think we should have given Joan Burton the finance ministry. I mean, you know, like, I think half an hour with Joan Burton, the IMF would give us anything we want. Half an hour with Joan Burton, Vincent Brown and Jedward, we would own Germany. You know, seriously. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to have a... I actually quite like Joan Burton. I think not enough women in Irish politics, and I think she's one of the good ones. I like her, I respect her. I just hope she never gets a job answering phones for the Samaritans. That's not in anyone's interest, let's be fair. Wow. I mean, it would technically reduce unemployment, but no, not a good one. Again, that doesn't come out. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't meaning to. But no, we're in this really tough situation, and what can we do? I mean, one thought I had is we could try and work out the assets we do actually have, right? One of them apparently is that the Irish accent is apparently quite sexy, right? There was an international poll done a few years ago. There were 5 accents that were regarded the most attractive in the world. And number 5 was, I think, Australian, and then French, and then Scottish, and then Italian, and then Irish. Right? Now I would like to try this. I'm going to see if, you know the way that the Ukrainians and the Chinese have cornered the market on UkrainianBrides.com, and they have these awful like slogans like, do you find Western women feminist bitches? You know, Eastern women are far more submissive. This is what you need, and it's awful, like horrendous things that just pop up on your screen all the time. Not good at all. And I think we might have. I think. How about the slogan? Do you want a man who's too drunk or guilty to have an affair? Visit IrishHusbands.com. I wanted to try out this theory about accents. So if the women in the room, you could just generally, collectively respond, this would be great. I'm going to just try a chat-up line in each of those accents and just see how you feel about it. An Australian chat-up line would be something like, now since it's getting sandy, Nick's love, you are there, all guys stand on one leg. Okay, not so much. Right, a French chat-up line would be, my love for you is like a café au lait. Hot, warm, and very milky. So far, not a great response, I'm going to have to say. Okay. A Scottish chat-up line. If you batter my sausage, I'll batter yours. We like the Scottish option. Okay, alright. Clearly winning so far. Let me think, an Italian chat-up line would be, come back to my villa, who will make sweet, sweet love, and in the morning, breakfast in bed, served by my mama. Okay, I think Scotland is still winning, to be fair. And an Irish chat-up line now, I guess, would be, hi, can I borrow 20 quid so I can get you drunk? Like a very tight Six Nations game. Okay, good. Ireland's gotten literally all battling it out, which is good. I like to see that. It's good. I think actually rugby is the one of the few gleams of hope in this country right now, because we finally as a people, we've worked out the key to sporting success is to concentrate on sport that very few other countries take seriously. I mean, seriously, only about 8 countries in the world give a toss about rugby, and 2 of them are Scotland and Wales. And no offence to our beloved Celtic brethren, etc., but, you know, I mean, you know, we can probably do okay there. When it comes to international rules, we are guaranteed a silver medal at international level. Hurling, we are the undisputed champions of the world. Take that, People's Republic of China. So yeah, so we're in a strange state. I suppose I should probably, where are we at? Actually, time is sort of marching on. I did want to briefly talk about some of the other bullshit that religion does, which is stuff from other shows that I've done. But it was hilarious. I actually didn't want to start the show because Richard Dawkins here was having a wonderful, Professor Dawkins was having a wonderful argument outside with some Islamic guys. Are they still here? No, they may have gone. Comedy is really... And by the way, I want to make it clear, I'm not... I feel like Islam is given a pretty rough ride in the Western press. I mean, you know, the way you read it, it's as if every Muslim is some kind of Al-Qaeda suicide bomber. I think it's worth remembering, there are 1.3 billion Muslims in the world, okay? That means even if there were 13 million Al-Qaeda suicide bombers, that'd be 1% of Islam. And there's nothing like 13 million, and the number of suicide bombers is actually going down all the time. And people occasionally, if you're a comedian, especially if you talk about, you know, God or Jesus or whatever, people can be, oh, you slag off Jesus, but you wouldn't slag off Muhammad, would you? Yeah. You seem scared, aren't you? And I'm like, well, hang on a second. First of all, you know nothing about Islam. Because if you did, you'd know that Jesus is a prophet in Islam. Thus, for me to depict Jesus in a Muslim country like Pakistan is blasphemous and should have got me beheaded. Particularly given that Bin Laden was actually in the country at the fucking time. Which I only realise now, of course, but still, a little bit freaky. But no, I mean, the main reason, I do jokes about the veil, I jokes about suicide bombing, I jokes about Islamism, no problem with any of that, but the main reason I don't do jokes about, or many jokes about the Prophet Muhammad, is because basically Western audiences tend not to know a hell of a lot about him. I usually say to these people, right, can you tell me Muhammad's parents' names? Anybody?
No.
No, didn't think so. Or how he died, right? Very hard to tell a story when people don't have any reference points, right? One of the things people I think do know is that Muhammad was illiterate, right? He couldn't read or write. In fact, I sometimes feel quite sorry for him, Muhammad, because he couldn't read or write. He wasn't even allowed to look at cartoons. You know. No wonder he founded a religion. You know. But, I mean, so we know the Quran was written down, and we know it was dictated by him, but we don't know the circumstances in which it was written. So, for example, it is perfectly conceivable that Muhammad and his mates went out one night and had a fantastic night, got really, really drunk, right? Arrived home at 4 in the morning, had a massive fry-up, rashers, sausages, black pudding, the whole lot, right? And he woke up the next day at 12 o'clock going, oh, wow, peace be upon me. I am never doing that again. No, seriously, no, write that down. Generally, what I find more amusing to joke about is the ridiculous ideology of the people who use his name to blow people up, which I alluded to earlier. Especially when it comes to these people, their views on sex are fucking hysterical, right? The basic Islamist Taliban position on sex is all women have to wear the veil. Now, personally, I think if you choose to wear the veil as an expression of your culture or your religious identity, personally, I haven't got a problem with that, apart from certain security situations, but generally I think it's cool, right? If you say all women have to wear the veil, what you are effectively saying is, Allah the Almighty has created everyone, and said there shall be no premarital sex. But your hair is so fabulous, if I even glimpse it, I will lose all self-control. Which is kind of like a weird parallel universe L'Oreal ad going, for hair so shiny, men of every religion will lose all theological perspective. Develop and control the Boulevard for Garnier Cabot, because you're worth it. It's just bonkers. And then the same people who say this turn around and go, but if you die as a suicide bomber, you will go to heaven and you will have 72 virgins. Now, all that really tells me is that these guys have no practical real-life experience of relationships with adult women. Because if they did, they would promise you 72 women who've just left a really unsupportive boyfriend. And what kind of confuses me is that all of the major religions basically have this view that God doesn't approve of sex. Sex is some kind of sinful, unless you're sort of married and engaging in it for procreation, you create a child, you will then brainwash into said religion. Apart from that, it's sinful and wrong and evil and bad. Despite the fact that it's the same people who tell you God made everything, and God sees everything. So God has seen every sexual act that has ever taken place in the history of the world. He's also seen every piece of pornography ever made in the history. Not just when it was made, but on every subsequent viewing of it, after that. So, logically, by their rationale, that either means God is guilty of incredibly poor poor forward planning, or he's a bit of a perv. And those are kind of your only two options if you follow that. And what kind of upsets me more than that is actually the fact that all of these religions are quite homophobic, right? Despite the fact that Jesus said, plainly, love thy neighbour, right? The Quran clearly states, God makes glorious all that he creates, right? And not only that, but pretty much every religion tells you, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Now, for my money, homosexuality is the embodiment of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. Pretty much, you know, word for word, etc. So, I find that kind of weird. And I mean, look, I have some sympathy. I've got an uncle who is Oklahomophobic, which is a fear of gay men and musicals. He's just never been the same since Rent. Yeah, no, it's a strange one. And we end up having this ridiculous religious-inspired debate of, is it okay for homosexual people to get married? That is completely the wrong debate. What we should be debating is it okay for homophobic people to get married? And let me make it clear, I think homophobia is disgusting and immoral and probably unchristian. But, at the same time, I'm a liberal. So I think if two homophobic people really love each other, and they want to meet behind closed doors, as consenting adults, in private, that's kind of their business. I mean, I don't think we should let them to adopt children, obviously. There's no way a vulnerable child should think that kind of disgusting, depraved behaviour is somehow normal. And people worry that maybe the children would grow up homophobic, and we don't know. I mean, the truth is, some people think that it's a lifestyle choice, and some people think homophobes are just born that way. And I couldn't tell you, honestly, I have no idea. The one concession I will make, I think we should allow them to serve in the army, preferably towards the front. Actually, maybe in Benghazi, that would be good, yeah. I was watching the thing about Colonel Gaddafi the other day, and I had this moment of going, hang on a second. If you're an oil-rich dictator, right, and you spend 40 years repressing your own people, funding international terrorism, and running your own country and army, and after 40 years, you haven't passed the rank of colonel, it's time to fucking go! I mean, take a fucking hint, would you? So I think I'll probably finish up soon. I just wanted to briefly tell you a story about the night Barack Obama was elected. I thought it would be quite a good idea to interview the Ku Klux Klan. Not because I like them, not at all, no. But because basically, I think that, it's important when a group like the KKK, who have a long and colourless history, when they are totally and completely defeated, I think it's important to mark that occasion with as much pomp and ceremony as possible, just to rub it in, Much as I would love to have interviewed Hitler, just as the Allied tanks rolled into Berlin. Going, you're not going to win this, mate. How do you feel? Talk us through where it went wrong for you, Adolf. Did you wake up in the morning and think, oh, of course, Napoleon? I like when people get that joke, that's nice. History geeks, woo! I'm Irish. We all know our history backwards, quite literally. It's actually weird doing gigs in the UK, because, there are certain bits of history they're brilliant on. Like, they are fantastic on Henry VIII and Hitler. But anything in between, good luck. That's kind of their sense of, it's quite all over the place. But the KKK, an interesting group of people, mad, but interesting. I should probably explain that last year, when the World Cup was on, and there was a game between England and America, and my brain is a bit broken. All I could think during that game was, Jesus, I wonder who the Taliban are cheering for. It's got to be quite a dilemma if you're a hardcore Islamic fundamentalist and a soccer fan. You've got to be slightly torn. So when Obama got in, I thought this is the moment to, really really rub this in and let these guys, know what they think is kind of nonsense. And I started out by asking them a very open question, give them lots of rope, let them lynch themselves. Was the basic plan. I said, what do you make of Barack Obama, the first mixed-race president to be elected? And the guy said, well, I was waiting for a torrent of racist abuse, and what I got was, well, Obama's a Marxist. And I thought, well, two thoughts went to my head. One is, the Ku Klux Klan have clearly done some PR training. Does that explain the blonde highlights of Terry Brown? Just popped into my brain. And, why not? Maybe. Oh, we've got some Terry Brown fans in. Oh, really? Okay, or else no one knows who Terry Brown is. For which I love you. It's so good that you don't. It's better that nobody knows. We should just gradually like, they want to shake our hands. Just take her out of history. Just rewrite history in a better version. It's a bit dark, Abie. Wasn't going to go there. The second thought was, I'm actually going to have to argue with this man. So we argued. I said, well, he's Marxist, really, because I think what you'll find is that right now George Bush is using taxpayers' money to bail out America's banks, which is kind of a form of nationalisation and as such a cornerstone of socialism. And he said, yes, it is. And I thought, oh shit, I'm agreeing with the Ku Klux Klan. That wasn't really meant to happen. So we chatted a bit more, and eventually, after 7 or 8 minutes, I've really got to ask him a question about race. So I said, look, the whole Ku Klux Klan ideology is that mixed-race marriage is somehow wrong or sinful. Does that mean Barack Obama would be a better president, in your view, if both of his parents were black? He didn't like that question. got quite angry, actually. And I was like, well, I'm just asking because, the KKK member, he actually said race is not an issue with us. And I said, really? According to your website, you only allow members who are of pure European descent, and who don't date people of other races, and don't adopt children of other races, and also who aren't atheists or homosexuals or insane. On which grounds I qualify at least 1.5 reasons I can. I leave it to you to decide which, at least 1.5. And he basically said to me, well, no, that's not an issue. And I said, well, hang on, because Sarah Palin is married to a man who's part Inuit. Barack Obama is not entirely white. And John McCain has adopted children from Bangladesh. So in many ways, Joe Biden was their great white hope. But what really confuses me, Pastor Pierce, is the fact that you say you're against mixed-race marriage, but given that Jesus' mother was a Palestinian Jew, and his father was God, doesn't that make Jesus He didn't really like that question. He got quite angry. In fact, he started out quite well. He said, well, no, man was good in God's image. I thought, I can't really, I don't believe it, but I can't argue that one very well. And then he landed himself right in it and went, oh, and Mary was in fact a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman from Northern Europe who was kidnapped, get this, enslaved, and taken to Palestine where she had sex with God in March of the year 0, if my maths is correct. And this is what this man believes. And just to prove to myself how bonkers he was, I went on the website afterwards. If you're looking, it's kkk.bz, which either means they're in league with Beelzebub, or slightly more likely, statistically, at least in this room, is that they've registered their domain name in Belize, a Central American country full of non-white people. Which, by the way, means a supposed patriotic organisation registering somewhere else to avoid paying their taxes kind of makes them quite similar to U2 in some ways. The other obvious similarity between the Ku Klux Klan and U2 is they both have an all-white lineup. To be fair, you care about Africa, do you, Bonham? Not enough of a black drummer, you racist bastard. And they have this thing which kind of freaked me out a bit, which said that, it was a thing that said that the Ku Klux Klan is not a charity. I worked that out. But by far the best thing on their website was the line, the Ku Klux Klan is not a dating organisation. And I thought, who makes that mistake? How lonely would you have to be before you think, well, I'd like to meet a blonde woman in my area. I really don't care care what she looks like, as long as she has nice eyes and she's good at laundry. They're my only two requirements. I love the thought that somewhere in cyberspace is a confused, slightly horny Islamic fundamentalist thinking, she lives in America, but that white pointy burqa is so sexy. And of course, I'll finish up now saying in a minute. Of course, as a comedian, my brain is thinking, you know, I'm sort of writing Ku Klux Klan Lonely Hearts ads. Which, you know, things like, mature Aryan seeks feisty Eva Braun for midnight marches, late night lynchings, an erection of 1,000-year Reich. Must have own bunker. There's a cross in my heart. Can you set it on fire? But here's the interesting, and this is the thing I think you guys will appreciate, right? Because I went away and I thought about all this, right? Because their whole ideology in the KK is that mixed race marriage is a bad idea, right? And yet they say they're not a dating organisation. And I actually went away and read some Darwin, and according to Darwin, mixed race marriage is a really, really good idea, because if you have, you know, children of mixed race, they have healthier, more balanced immune systems, right? And if that's true, guys, it means, number one, the Ku Klux Klan are idiots who are fighting a war on nature they will never win. And number two, it means everybody in the world, and everybody in this room right now, is a sexual racist. And that's a bit awkward, because we're not really, we're brought up to think that a racist is born when a rapist and a fascist have a child, you know. It's this very evil thing, you know, and look, I believe in equality, as I'm sure most of you do, but I've got to be honest with you guys. If I walk into a group of 20-something, you know, women in their 20s from India or Pakistan, my first thought is, I wonder if any of them are single and would like to sleep with me. If I walk into a group of men in their 70s who are from Poland, that is not my first thought. So I may believe in equality in some wonderfully highfalutin way, but quite honestly, when it comes down to it, my sexual brain's engaged, turns out I'm ageist, sexist, and racist. Which is a bit disturbing. And obviously I'm not saying we're all as bad as of course we're not all as bad as the Ku Klux Klan. They want a world of blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryans. If I was in charge of the world, I'd want everyone to have access to education, so we could all live together in, you know, peace and tolerance and understanding without religion. So, you know, they want a world of blonde-haired, blue-eyed people. I want a world of liberal, middle-class atheists just like me. Which is kind of the same impulse, in a messed up sort of way. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I think it's important that we always look at our own failings and so on. And actually, when I've thought about this over a long period of time, I've realised that, you know, we're all told to think certain things, like, oh, you know, you can't really believe, you know, you can't question the financial system, or you're told that we can't, you know, no, you can't be racist, no, racism is bad and evil. And actually, the only way you could be completely colourblind in life is if you are totally ignorant of human history, right? Once you know about the great movements of people like the slave trade in Africa, which was brought over to America, or the conquistadors in South America, or the British Raj in India, once you know about that stuff, it has to inform how you see the world, right? And you know, if you live in Ireland, it's incredibly transparent, because we've only had immigration for like 13 years, right? And, you know, most people who are immigrants in Ireland, a lot of them have come from places like China, Nigeria, Poland, and they've come here to make better lives for themselves. And to be honest, most of them don't want to be stand-up comedians, so they don't threaten me economically in any way. So my narrative of immigration is incredibly positive. It's like, Jesus Christ, the girls in Spar look amazing, don't they? Wow, is that just me? Anyone else know it's not? I lost when I said Jesus Christ, didn't I? I lost the whole thing. Damn! It was going to slip out sooner or later, wasn't it? My alternative, as an Irish person, my cultural alternative to Holy Mother of God is Sweet Mother of Ted. Which I like. But I realised that once you know the history of humanity, it's very hard. And that maybe if I was an English comedian, I would look at Dara O'Brien and you know, Brendan Burns and Reginald D. Hunter and think, feckin' immigrants coming over here, taking my gigs and, you know, our women, etc. In large numbers in all three of their cases. As I understand. But basically, what I think what I'm trying to say is that, you know, the more you learn about the world, the more I think you learn to accept your own failings and limitations in your own point of view as well as everyone else's. And the idea of being colourblind, I think it's interesting that it comes to us from America. Because in my experience, lovely as they are, Americans are the most historically ignorant people I've ever met. And I'm not being racist when I say that, because Americans aren't a race. Also, because I can prove it to you, and I'll finish on this, because we're at time, and you guys have been a really, thank you so much, you've been a really lovely audience. But I'll finish on this. Does anyone here happen to know the leading brand of condoms in America? Trojans. Oh, quite a lot of very well skeptical audience, no problem saying that. Normally it's like when we're looking around nervously in a small town in Ireland, someone going, oh, does anyone know? Oh, I know, but I'm not going to let you. Thank you. That is correct, right? Is the answer. And I think we can all appreciate the marketing angle. Hung like a horse, got wood, Trojans. It's obvious, right? But here's the thing, guys. If you know your history, when you think of Trojans, you think of an ingenious device designed to get you in somewhere you've been trying to get in for about 10 years. But the moment you're inside, it bursts open. That's a bit of guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abie. And I'm not going to try and talk that. So starting again, 9:30 tomorrow morning, and look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Cheers and good night.